When most people talk about the armed forces, they often forget that every person in the military family is also serving. Until you've had a son or daughter in uniform, you have no idea what it's like. I think the great American playwright and author Mary Roberts Reinhardt came closest to describing it. At the outset of World War I, she wrote a book called The Altar of War, and in it she said, "Men fight wars, but it is the mothers of a nation who raise the army. They are the silent patriots." Of course, no mother has a child for the express purpose of raising an army. Most mothers would rather fight the war themselves if it would save their sons and daughters from such a terrible plight. In a mother's eyes, her children will always just be children, playing in the carefree warmth of a summer sun and not dragging their weary limbs through muddy fields of death. When the drums beat and the bugles call, the military mother must straighten her shoulders and be prepared for that possibility. Now this is a Blue Star banner. If you have a family member who's in the military during a time of conflict, you display this in your window to show your pride in their service. There's another banner too, and that one features a gold star. It has a much deeper meaning. It means that family member has made the ultimate sacrifice and was killed in action. There was even a popular song written about it back then. There was a woman, Grace Darling Siebold. She had a son, George, who was a pilot during World War I. And on Christmas Eve, 1918, she received a package in the mail containing some of George's personal effects. And with it was a note saying George had died in action. His body was never returned. Well, in her grief, Grace dedicated herself to comforting other mothers and families who'd also lost children. And in 1928, she formed an organization, along with about 24 other women, known as the American Gold Star Mothers. Grace was elected national president, and Wisconsin was one of the first states to have its own chapter. Well, a little about me. Some people may say I'm old-fashioned. That's all right with me. I love to embroider. I love to crochet. I love to garden. I'm especially fond of African violets. They take a lot of care and attention. They don't grow well in Wisconsin, but they're worth the effort. I love my church. When I was a student at the University of Wisconsin, I was a member of the Christian Endeavor, and I was a lifelong member of the First Congregational Church. Of course, I love my country. I consider it a blessing to have lived in a society based on a belief in shared humanity and liberty. But most of all, I love my family. We have roots going all the way back to the first Plymouth colony. We consider Miles Standish and William Bradford among our ancestors. Now my father, Milford Pelton, he was a businessman in Edgerton, Wisconsin. And along with his partners, Ralph Pomeroy and J.R. Heistand, they ran one of the most successful tobacco companies in Wisconsin. In 1879, my father married Mary Pomeroy, his partner's daughter. And in 1881, I was born into a fairly wealthy family. But even wealthy families have their fair share of misfortune. Because when I was 2, my first brother, Ralph, was born, and he only lived to 4 months. My brother William was next. He did survive, and he lived a happy and healthy life. But my youngest brother was born in 1889, and he also only lived to 8 months old. I think that was the final blow for my poor mother, because she died less than 2 years later at the early age of 34. My father knew that a daughter of 10, a boy of 7 needed a mother, so he married his other partner's daughter, Clara Heistand. It was a good financial move as well. And in 1901, there was a terrible drought in the Midwest, and we lost a quarter of our tobacco crop. But within 2 years, we had substantially survived that crisis enough that I was able to attend the University of Wisconsin, where I studied Latin, German, with the intention of becoming a teacher. But it was also while at university I met my future husband at a Christian Endeavor retreat on Governor's Island. After we both graduated, I married Harry Gray Smith. He started out as a teacher, but he soon found out he had a talent for business. He bought all kinds of property around Wisconsin, as well as in South Dakota. He ran an oil company, as well as several other ventures. He did so well, he was the second person in Madison to own a car. I can still see him now, sitting behind the wheel of that Oldsmobile, his straw hat tilted back as he surveyed the road ahead. That car did have its problems. The headlight on the passenger side was always coming loose. It was my job to hold it in place with my umbrella. In 1908, we had the first of our 4 children, Marion Bradford, named after one of our esteemed ancestors. Then soon after came her sister Catherine, and she was almost 10 by the time we had our first son, William. And finally, in 1921, Robert was born. Robert Standish. Children are just like African violets. They need a lot of care and attention, but they're sure worth the effort. Robert, he took after his father, always looking for something new and exciting to do. He went to Randall School, graduated from West High School. While he was a teenager, he earned enough money delivering the local newspaper to buy a 1940 Mercury. He studied engineering at the University of Wisconsin before enlisting in the Army in 1941. He always had a fascination for airplanes, and he even won a model airplane contest in Madison. But it wasn't a surprise when he was selected for pilot training by the Army Air Corps. And in March of 1943, he earned his wings at Williams Field in Arizona. He was commissioned second lieutenant, and we were so proud of him. 6 months later, he flew overseas with the 12th Troop Carrier Squadron. It was his primary duty to fly an specially equipped airplane known as an air ambulance. And on February 24th, 1944, he was on a mission from Italy to North Africa when the plane he was piloting crashed into a mountain near Caltagirone, Italy. The 4 crew members, 18 wounded soldiers, and 3 nurses were killed instantly. You know, it was just like my son Robert. Even though the weather was horribly bad, he volunteered for that mission. And he'd only been a pilot for less than a year. He was buried at the American Cemetery in Sicily. And after the war ended, his body was exhumed and he was sent back home to us. And so our beloved son was laid to rest here at Forest Hill on August 10th, 1948. My husband Harry, he died less than a year later. And I think it was of a broken heart. So thus, the honor of becoming a Gold Star mother was painfully bestowed upon me. I took part in the organization, trying to alleviate my grief as well as that of other mothers. And I attended it with great care and attention, and it was worth the effort. In 1950, the Gold Star mothers decreed that the Gold Star banner could only be displayed in the family's home and nowhere else. That's why I can only show you this banner, the one with the blue star on it. But this star will always shine gold, just like the sunlight on my son's head as he played in the carefree warmth of a summer sun. When a blue service star turns to gold, what a tale of affection is told. Duty to country has cost one his all, while others at home bow their heads to the call. In their sorrow, the ones left behind voice a prayer that is airborne in mind. Till souls meet on high, we must whisper goodbye when a blue service star turns to gold.